Welcome back to the Meet the Athlete podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by Samantha Harrison, one of the UK's best all-time half marathon runners and distance runners in general. In today's episode, we talk about coaching, running, nutrition, and even some women's health as well. It's a topic that I definitely think needs to be kind of tackled more. So I really hope you enjoy today's episode, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Sam, for your time, and I'll catch you in the next one. So guys, we're joined by Samantha Harrison. Thank you, Sam, for coming on. How are we?
Yes, really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very good. A little bit tired, but I mean that's expected. I mean, you've just come straight out of the gym.
Yeah, just got showered, gym, and now in the cafe, just chilling out on these lovely sofas, having a coffee. So,
Oh,
well,
very
decaf
cool.
coffee.
Decaf. Okay. So do you try and avoid caffeine when you're not like racing?
Um, it's more sort of late afternoon because it's sort of like 3 o'clock now, half three. I don't
Yeah.
like to have caffeine sort of too late in the day, otherwise I just won't sleep at night.
Yeah, that's very, very wise. So yeah, as I said, thank you for coming on today. We can have a little bit of chat about your running, and a little bit about like women's health and that sort of thing as well. And then to end off, we've got some kind of trivia questions that I like to do, just really simple, just a little bit of fun, absolutely nothing to stress about whatsoever. Just to finish off. So the first question I've got for you is I just want to see your opinion on how your year's gone as a whole, really.
Yeah, so this year has been phenomenal. This year, I mean, looking back on it now, like I think sometimes I get a little bit emotional about it because it's just been such a big year and experience championships that I'd never experienced before in stadium, like huge amounts of people in stadiums. Yeah, it's been a fantastic year terms of racing, so PBs experience, championships, meeting new people. Yeah, I'd say it's probably the biggest year of my career so far.
Yeah, no, it's been pretty awesome. I've got some of my information that I've done. Like I do a little bit of research on everyone, so I've got some of your performances up. And looking back at them, they are very impressive. Like I think you're quicker than all of my PBs as well. So I should be the one being a bit quiet on this podcast. So one rumor I've heard about you is that you tend not to race in a watch. Could you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's funny actually. A few people have asked me that sort of question. So I do obviously wear my Garmin, my watch, all throughout training. Um, but when I first started ever racing, I never wore a Garmin because I didn't really understand the concept of pace and time. Um, because I was so naive to the sport, I just went into a race and just wanted to do the best I can and finish in the best position that I can. Again, time, pace, I didn't quite understand it, so it was irrelevant whether I wore a watch or not. And ever since then, since being coached and just, I've always raced very, very well. I race a lot better than what I do that I train in. So by not wearing a watch, it actually works better for me because I go on feel. Yeah, sometimes you might go out a little bit too quick than you expect, or you might go out a little bit slower and then sort of have to make up for that time. I always sort of gauge what time I should be doing around eat my splits, so my sort of 5K splits, 10K splits, 3K splits. I write that on my hand, and most races do have some kind of time that you can clock
Yeah.
over the 5K, 3K, 10K, depending on the event that you're doing. So I am aware of what times I need to be achieving. But half of the time in races, GPS might be out. So if I look at my watch for the first mile or two, I know mentally I could put myself into panic. So I just like to go and feel. And my coach he actually prefers me not to wear a watch. So there was a race, a half marathon that I was going to do, and I said, you know what, I'll just wear a watch. I won't need to look at it. I'll discipline myself not to wear it and to look at it. Sorry, and just still go on feel. But it would be interesting to know my exact splits, mile splits. And he just said, look, Sam, I would prefer you not to do that. I prefer you to just check where you need to be at each 5K marker and just do it that way, because I just think mentally you race so much better by doing that. So ever since, I've just not wore a watch, and it's always worked. I mean, I will wear one day, but at this moment in time, I just don't want to change that and don't feel like I need to.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. It's definitely got me kind of questioning myself. Should I should I do that? Because sometimes I'll do the same. I'll start panicking if my watch is saying that I'm running 20 seconds per K slower than I was expecting. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, so I heard about the fact you did that from a podcast your coach did, Vince Wilson.
yeah.
So yeah, would you say that you feel like you're a bit more in tune with your body in terms of like the pace and knowing what is the right sort of feel because you're not basing it off of a watch when it comes to the race?
Yeah, I mean, I am pretty good at knowing what sort of pace should feel, what pace should feel. So if I'm doing a session with my coach and he'll say, right, okay, we're doing I don't know, 5 mile tempo at 5:30 pace, I can sort of run to that, and each mile will be pretty much bang on that sort of pace. Or if I'm doing a flat out mile reps at sub 5 minute miling, I can gauge how that feels. Don't get me wrong, some days you can completely be out if you're having one of those days that aren't quite going to planning sessions. But I think with or without a watch, I'd probably feel like that. So I can gauge on my breathing, on how I feel, sort of what pace it feels like. So yeah, because I've always done that. I train my body to run at certain paces. I can sort of gauge how I feel quite well, and that's why with racing I don't wear one because I know what 5 minute miling can feel like and 5:30 miling can feel like.
No, yeah, that's really interesting. I think there's definitely got to be like a sense of bravery to racing without a watch. So no, I definitely respect you for that. So that's
Yeah,
really
no,
interesting.
absolutely. I can remember doing a race once, and yeah, I think one of the guys that I ran with was saying at the end of the race, he said, "You do know what the first mile was, don't you?" I said, "Oh, it was around about 5:05." He said, "No, it was 4:57." I was like, "Oh,"
Mm, yeah,
I was like, "Maybe I
mm,
should have bought a watch." Actually, maybe I
mm,
didn't want to wear a watch because I would have had
yeah.
panic mode then.
I think also the watch doesn't take into consideration like if you're running uphill or you're running downhill. So yeah, it's better
That's
to
it.
just.
You just never know if GPS is out anyway, do you?
And in the heart of London, where majority of like the UK half marathons and stuff are, like yeah, it just goes crazy through Canary Wharf. GPS goes a little bit bonkers through there. So but yeah, no.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what are the plans for the next 6 months for you? Are you going to dabble with cross country a little bit, or is your plan to stay like solely on the roads? What's your kind of your plans?
Yeah, so over the next sort of 3 or 4 months now, up until sort of end of January, really. Well, right up until here now till April, I will be in a marathon training block. But I have got races in between that, so quite a few half marathons. I've got two 10Ks, which I will be tapering for some of those. Because some of them I will be targeting very quick times, hopefully, and then the others will just be sort of just training through and just racing really. So yeah, I'm in a training block as such. So it's just yeah, consistently just sort of building up that mileage, building out them sort of marathon based sessions, which I really am trying to work on at the moment. Hence why I pulled out of London Marathon in October, because I didn't have the training for the marathon. I wasn't doing those marathon specific workouts, and you really do need those in a marathon block. 10K training is brilliant and you can run fast, but 26.2 miles is a long way to go off 10K training. So yeah, I'm just sort of building up a real good base at the moment for the marathon. Still doing all the sort of speed work, because I've still got 10Ks, so still want to run really quickly in them. So yeah, it's just getting through a big winter block, not doing any cross country. I haven't really ever done a cross country season. I did do one, a couple of races back in 2008, 18, or 19 or 2018, I can't remember now, where I did a couple of cross country races, but absolutely like, oh, they were awful. They're horrendous. They weren't for me.
Yeah,
I get that people love them, and people really target them and have that cross country season every year. But I think because I've never really trained on grass, I've never really trained through cross country or had that big season consistently. It
yeah,
I just really struggle, to be honest, with cross country. I struggle on the grass. I struggle in the mud, not just mentally but physically. my running style is completely changed. It's it really is out of my comfort zone to any other distance, and almost too much, to the point where I remember doing my first cross country. I know I'm a different, like I'm a lot stronger now, but my ankles were all over the place. I ended up being injured and being out for 6 weeks. So it's just completely different for me. So I just don't take that risk and do cross country. So that's my time to get a really good training block in. And now I'm focusing on the marathon. I don't want to risk anything by doing cross country, especially when I'm not used to it. It would be too much of a risk at this moment in time when I'm focusing on the half and the marathon.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that makes sense to me. I mean, I don't see too many marathon runners like dabbling with cross country over the winter. It seems a bit of like too necessary, like high risk of injury, you know. But would I be right in saying that you're planning on debuting at the London Marathon next year?
Yeah, so it's not a debut. So I've done London Marathon. I did it
Ah,
last October.
okay, I must have missed that.
Yeah. So third Brit in 2:32.
Yeah,
So yeah, no, like it was a
I know,
solid
I did see that.
performance.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a solid marathon for me. It wasn't a complete surprise. The time I ran, obviously, I wanted to go sort of under that 2:30 territory, but with it being the first marathon I've really trained for, um, it was so unknown. There was still a lot now that I look back on that I've improved on in this block already, that I'm doing. There's things I can look back on now that I made the mistake in that marathon. It was a big learning. It was a marathon that was sort of a learning process for me, and I'm trying to now in this block learn from what I did on my last block and the last marathon. And I know now, when it hits that sort of last 10K in the marathon, where it really starts the marathon, really, that last 10K. It can go either way for people. It can be where people really, really struggle and their paces just completely drop off. Or it can be where people, feel great and then they really kickstart into the marathon. And for me, that last 10K was where I really struggled. So now I'm learning for that in training, and I'm training for that and practicing everything that I learned in my last block for this block. So hopefully when I do London in April, I'm going to be more mentally and physically prepared for it, definitely physically. So yeah, we'll see what the marathon brings.
yeah, for sure. This might be a bit of a difficult question, but is there a time expectation or something that you're kind of in your head you've got as like the golden number that if you achieved, like obviously I know it's a while away, 6 months, a lot can change in 6 months. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I want to hit the world standard, which is 2:28 flat,
Yeah.
which has just been announced over the last few months. So, of course, I'd love to make the world standard and the Olympic standard. So that is the aim, to hit within that standard. So get quicker than that standard. I mean, what me and my coach would say are probably two different things. I'm very sort of just take the marathon as it comes. And anything can go wrong in the marathon. It doesn't matter whether you're in the best shape of your life or you're not in the best shape of your life. You just never know how the day's going to go. So I try and approach it with such an open mind. I'm going to try and perform to the best I can and run as fast as I can. But I'm only going to do what my body allows me to do. You just don't know how the marathon's going to go. You can get ill. It can be a number of things. All sorts can happen on the day. So I'm just going to aim for going within that world standard. If I can hit between 2:25 and 2:28, even quicker than that, then brilliant. Then yeah, but anything within the world standard for me. Obviously, my coach is training me up for a specific time, so more sort of 2:24, 2:25. I think he'd love me to go 2:24, especially with my half being 68 in that similar sort of shape at the moment, and hopefully he thinks I should be quicker by then. You'd like to think I'd be able to go for that 2:24 sort of time, but you just don't know with the marathon. For me, just hitting that world standard and Olympic standard is the main aim, and yeah, anything more is a bonus.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything specific in this training block that you're trying to really focus on? So a particular weakness that you're trying to fix?
Strength. So I'm doing a lot more strength and conditioning. So what I found with London last year was that um, I but obviously fueling was one. I feel I struggled to take on fueling, which again it's just practice. It's just adapting the gut to taking in as much fuel as possible. And the other thing was sort of I think it was time on feet. I think I need consistent um, training now. I feel like my body needs to have some more consistent training rather than that's like when I say when I'm racing over the next few months, I'll be tapering for some races, but then other races I will be training right through on 110 to 20-mile weeks. And I think if I can consistently do that and get some really good mileage weeks in, and some of those marathon key sessions. So this year, I'm actually doing sort of 2 long runs in the week, every other week,
Okay.
not every single week. And I'd
Yeah.
never done that before. So it's getting my body used to that pace for that amount of time. So, like you say, doing more tempo runs between 16 and 22 miles. Going over the marathon distance or up to the marathon distance in training. I didn't quite do that before. I only did one long run, and that was about 23 miles. For some people, that's fine, but for me, I think we're going to try and go up to the distance at least, and get used to that time on feet and fueling as well. So fuel for that 26 miles. Again, my body gets used to that. So yeah, we're approaching it. We're just really, really going for it this year. Just really on it with my strength and conditioning. So I've upped to that. I've upped to the sort of weights that I'm doing with her to make me stronger. Yeah, it's just sort of just trying new things, really trying different things to what I did in the last block, and just hope that it works on the day.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. So yeah, I mean, everything's looking towards April as being a really good kind of London Marathon for you. Do you ever wake up on that Sunday or whenever you do your long run and just think, oh, I've got 23, 24, 25 miles to do. I really cannot be asked for this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm guilty of that. I think,
yeah,
especially through winter. I mean, to be honest with you, training in my last marathon block, it was through the summer. And because London was in the October, I
yeah,
basically did the summer marathon training, which a lot of people quite struggle, but I actually really enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. It was real tough, especially when it was sort of late, like 35, 36 degrees on the odd day. And it sort of forced me to fuel as well, which was brilliant because I was so thirsty, I needed to fuel. So that helped. And I enjoyed the light evenings, the light mornings, the sunshine. I enjoyed all that. I wanted to get out the door. Um, don't get me wrong, training through winter, it has its perks. It's a lot more mild. But yeah, when it's like the other Sunday, it was absolutely chucking it down with rain, and it was dark still. It looked quite dark anyway, and it just miserable day. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a long day, a long, long run. Luckily, I had some friends to help me out. So a lot of people that I train with don't really do much marathon training. So their long run was sort of 15 miles. So, I only had to do another 30 minutes or so on my own. So that really helped because, you've got some company to pull you through, and you all help each other out. So then, yeah, if it was completely solo, yeah, it would have been pretty challenging. But it's just a part of it. You just sort of have to get your head down, grind it out, and when you're finished, you don't have to do it for another week, so it's not
yeah.
too bad.
Well, not in your case if you've got to do two every week, but yeah. So
Yeah, well, every other week at the moment.
so what? Some people don't know the names of all the different shoes, but what is one particular shoe that you're really enjoying using at the moment in your training?
So I use different trainers depending on what sort of workout I'm doing.
Yeah,
So obviously I do love the Adidas Carbon trainers, which is the Adidas Pro 2 and the Adidas Pro 3. They're brilliant. So they're just so comfortable to be in, and I use them for my sessions. So whether it's a long tempo, I'll use the Adidas Pro 2s or 3s, whichever one. I usually use the Pro 3s, which is their new one, for my marathon based stuff, because that's what I will be racing in. When I do the marathon, I'll be racing in the Adidas Pro 3.
Yeah.
And then I'll alternate with the Adidas Pro 2 because I really like them too for sort of on the track. So I do my track workouts or road sessions with them. They're really light, bouncy, responsive. And then for sort of my everyday runs, I'll have I use the SL20, which is Adidas SL20, or the Adizero Adios. They're just sort of a light, really light, bouncy shoe, no carbon or anything in them. They're just a really lightweight shoe, and I use them for sort of my long runs, slightly some tempo runs or quicker type runs, but not sessions. Pretty much do most of my runs or easy runs in those. They're just very comfortable. They're my main sort of 3 lots of type of trainers, really.
Yeah, for sure. So I know when you got into running, your late teens. Could you just talk a little bit about, for the listener at home, how you kind of got into running? Because obviously, in terms of running, you actually kind of probably started quite late compared to a lot of the elite females in the UK at the moment.
Yeah. So I've always been into sports, fitness, gym, pretty much, majority of my life. When I was a child, I played football from about the age of 6 to 13. I was scouted by Notts County as a junior. So I've always had that sport background. I didn't do any form of running at all, apart from on the pitch. So yeah, there was that background. And then sort of when I became from about the age of about 16 to about 18, I didn't really do any sport. I sort of came out of it, and that period of my life was more going out, enjoying myself, being around friends, letting my hair down, having the odd bit of alcohol. That was just my period of life where it was all about going out, enjoying myself, going out on holidays with the girls, and being around my friends. I think I just needed that period of my life and really enjoyed that period of my life. And then from about 18 to 21, 22, I started then getting back into fitness in the gym and that type of thing. Again, I didn't run. I wasn't heavily into running at all at this point. I would probably do, I don't know, 25 minutes on a treadmill once or twice a week. But I did a lot of like gym work. So I do a lot of cross training. I do a lot of spin classes. It was a gym type of thing. I did a lot of walking. And then from about 21, I started running. So one of my friends introduced me to it to start with. I'd go running with him because he went out running a couple of times a week. So I slowly started like jogging about with him, and then sort of really enjoyed it. And then he sort of stopped, and then I continued. And I just found running really therapeutic. It was after I'd finished work, I would just go out for a run. I didn't have any concept of time, pace. It was, I'd go out for 20 minutes or however long. Didn't have any Garmin or anything. It was nothing structured. It was going out because I enjoyed running, especially in the summer times. It was great. Just slowly started increasing that. So instead of going out twice a week, it would be 3 times a week, then 4 times a week. And then I got a little bit addicted, if I'm honest with you, and it was 7 days a week. Straight after work, it was just a sense of feeling for me. Like I just felt it made me feel so good, physically as well as mentally. I just feel so re-energized. I just really enjoyed running.
Yeah.
And then after sort of quite a few months of doing that, and then just enjoying it, it got to the point where I thought, okay, I need to target something here. I'm running all the time. There was Nottingham Half Marathon coming up, because I knew quite a few people that were doing it. So I thought, oh, that would be pretty cool. I've never done a half marathon. Like, that would be at that point of my life, like at that point of running, a half marathon was huge to me. That was like, oh wow, that's something to tick off the bucket list.
Yeah.
Because I'd never ran, I don't know, I would have probably never done over sort of 5 miles or so in training.
Okay.
I can't remember because I never used to track what I ran. I just used to go out for however long, and then I don't know how much mileage I used to do or what pace I was doing, because I never used to record it on anything. So I entered the Nottingham Half Marathon, which was the end of September, and this is sort of summertime, so June, July time. So I was like, right, I've got not long to train. I need to train hard now. So once I'm fixated on something, I'm one of those individuals where I'm all or nothing. I will give my absolute everything into something once I decide to do it. And that was me then. From entering that half marathon, I put all my time and energy into running. It was just me. I had no coach. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. To me, all I had to do was go out and run every single day and just increase what I was doing. So instead of going out for 45 minutes, I was like, no, okay, I could be doing this half marathon for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I need to be running for that sort of period of time. I was just sort of logically putting it together to myself. Ended up just running 7 days a week, every day, straight after work, straight out for a run for an hour or however long. And then I started thinking in my head, okay, well, I want to run quick for this half marathon, so surely I need to be doing some quicker stuff, because I was just easy running every day, like just going out, just running. So then I started doing I live like practically on a really steep hill. So I started doing hill sprints. I thought, right, I'm going to run up this hill 20 times.
Yeah.
So I just started, training hard off my own back. It was all off my own structure. I didn't know what I was doing really. Did that, did the half marathon, finished, I can't remember exactly, I think it was 4th woman obviously. And I remember the other people in front of me, I think there was a girl that ran for England at the time, like they were really quick times. I think I'd ran, I can't remember exactly, you'd have to look on my Power of 10, I think I ran about 83, something like that. For my first ever half.
It's not bad. Quicker than my first ever half.
Really? But I didn't really know what was good or bad at the time. So I was like, 83, is that good? I was just happy with my position. Because again, I had no concept of time. I kind of Googled what's sort of good for times. It's a shame really, because I had nobody around me ran or had a running background or had any knowledge of running. So for me, it was just me on my own. I had none of my friends ran, none of my family ran. Like there was nobody around me to educate me on running. I could have gone to a running coach, but again, I didn't really, I just sort of was just doing it off my own back and just doing my own achievements and took control of myself. I'm very self-motivated in that way. So I just sort of just did it on my own. Once I'd done the Robin Hood half marathon, I was really chuffed, obviously, with my time and position. And I remember people saying to me like, "Oh, well done. Who do you run for?" I was like, "Who do I run for?" It's just sort of myself, really. And they're like, "You're not in a club, and you should join a club. Like, you'd be great." So as soon as somebody planted that seed into me, I rang up the local running club, which is Not Safe C, because I'm Nottingham based. And I just said, can I come next week? Can I come over to your sessions next week? I've just started running over the past, 6 months or so. And I really want to join the club and I really want to compete. Literally the guy on the phone, Trev, said, come down next Tuesday and Thursday. We'll put on the track sessions. And you can come and go, you can be coached, it's sort of up to you. So I joined Not Safe C, literally attended their first track session on the Tuesday, and it was completely different to what obviously I'd been doing, because I'd never done a track session or intervals, or I loved it though, it was great. I was like, I couldn't breathe. I was like, oh wow, I'm used to this. And then after then, from then on, just attended those sessions and then carried on doing my own thing. I never got personally coached by any of the coaches at Not Safe C. I just attended the club sessions, got advice and that type of thing, but still did my own training out of that, because I think just by having my own structure, having my own goals, I was just very determined on what I wanted to do, and I just don't think sometimes their coaching sort of suited on what I wanted to do. So I was really grateful that they still just let me attend the sessions, and then I did some races for them for quite a while. I did actually do some cross country for them, did some road races. I can't really remember. I was just very road based, I think, because I'd always run on the roads. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to run on the roads and still do a bit of track as well. And they were my two main focuses.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. No, I didn't actually know as much about you as I thought I did. There you go. So what I'd like to move on to now, obviously, about the sorts of things that I'd really like to learn from you in terms of like women's running. So being a male, obviously, I don't go through the same things that female runners do every month. So I just wondered if you could talk about if there's any slight changes you have to make to your training to kind of fit that in. So obviously, having a menstrual cycle, your hormones change every month a lot more than a male's does. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about training around that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this topic should be spoken about more often. I don't think it is spoken about very often. I'm not quite sure why. I think it's just sort of sidelined a little bit. I think if more females come out with the menstrual cycle and talk about it more often, I think it will then sort of be more into the media and people will be more interested and educated by it. I think it is a very important topic, especially when I'm affected by it myself. So yeah, absolutely. Like with training, of course, when I start my menstrual cycle, because I know exactly pretty much when I'm going to start every month. I know it's different for all different athletes. Around that time of month, I can almost guarantee when it's going to be, because you start to feel a change in yourself. I usually feel, just as I'm coming up to starting, I usually feel slightly my hormones. I'm quite my emotions are quite all over. So, as my coach would say, he thinks I get a bit emotional.
Okay. Yeah.
He would like my emotions feel a little bit all over. I feel quite not myself. I start to feel a little bit fatigued in training, and I can sense when I'm going to start, and then within days I've started, and it's almost like you can feel it coming on. And then so what I'll do is for that week, because obviously usually I'll have 2 sessions, a long run, and then easy running. So I will still plan to do my sessions, but what will happen is, because my coach is pretty much with me on most of my sessions, he will cut down the session. So, for example, if I had a track session of, I don't know, mile reps or 800s, 400s, he would probably reduce the volume. And he would just chat to me before the session. I would sort of tell him that I'm on, and I would say, look, not feeling 100% today. I'm going to do the session because, it's going to be here. It's never going to go away. But we're going to go on feel. And he's like, absolutely. He said, if we need to cut the session down, we will cut the session down in volume. But the effort's there. He just reassures me. He's like, that next week you're going to be on form again. It's just a part every month that you're going to feel like this. Don't be paranoid with your times. Don't question your fitness. Don't question anything like that, because it's this week, and then last week you were flying, the week after that you were flying. He was just like, it's just one of them weeks. So for example, and I'm quite happy to openly talk about it, I was on last week and I had 12 by a K, and the paces were out the window. I started off on pace, but by the end of the session, I just had nothing in me, and I was just like, I can't hit pace. And he said, I'm not concerned, it's fine. He said, do you want to drop this down the session? I'm more than happy to say, let's just cut the rest of the session off if you want to. And I did actually continue the session, and I just said, you know what, I feel okay. I can't go any quicker than this. It's like my body's not letting me go any quicker than this. And he was just like, that's absolutely fine. He said, don't worry about it. It's just one of them weeks. Don't question it. He said, I'm not concerned. The times were off, but they always are when you are on, to be honest with you. He just said, look what you did last week. It was pretty much nearly a PB session on the track. And then this week, you're nowhere near that, but there's a reason why. And he said, don't worry about it. You'll be back on form next week. And just sort of don't worry. He said, refuel well. I always listen to my body when I'm on at that time of month. And my coach usually always knows as well, because I end up eating like crazy amounts. And I just feel like you should listen to your body, and if it's craving or asking for something, you give it to it, yeah, because that's what it's calling for. And I just think at that time of the month, it's more, your body's more under stress than normal, and you can feel it as an athlete yourself. So yeah, I'll just listen to my body that week. And sometimes in training, you do feel a little bit, as well as feeling flat because you're on. Sometimes my diet probably isn't as great that week, but I'm just listening to my body, because if it's calling out for that bit more sugar or that bit more carbs or that bit more protein, then I'll give it what it wants, and then I know back after that week it will be back on track again, and I'll be back to normal, back in normal routine, and feeling myself again.
Yeah, for sure. Do you obviously you're in the fortunate position where you said your periods are pretty regular. Do you take that in consideration when planning races? So obviously you don't want to be planning races for the same sort of week that your menstrual cycle is going to begin.
Yeah, so I always hope and pray, to be honest, I don't fall on a race doesn't fall on the time that I'm on. But sometimes, what can you do about it? There has been discussions that I've chatted with my coach, because very fortunately, my coach is very, very open. I can talk to him about anything like that. He completely understands, and I'm very, very fortunate that I have a coach that is very open to chat about stuff like that. So I will just sit down with him and be like, look, on this race, you want me to go for this time? Do you think I'm going to achieve that? Because that is the time that I'm going to probably fall on. If it's not that day, it will definitely be within them few days. You don't necessarily always feel fatigued and rough straight away. It's usually sort of in the middle of your cycle, because you actually go through phases where you can actually feel really good. So when I'm just finishing, I actually feel really, really good. It's when I'm on the build up to starting, that's when my body is like all over the place. So it just depends on whereabouts you are and what day the race is going to be. But my coach would just say, depending on what race it is, are you going to pull out? And you can't always do that with races, particularly, if it was an Olympic trial, are you going to pull out of an Olympic trial and ruin your chances of going to the Olympics because it falls on that day? Sometimes, you just have to just listen to your body and hope that it can be okay on the day, and it will manage. I think it depends on what sort of distance you're doing as well. Maybe if you're doing a 5K, your body might just be able to cope with that. Or if you're doing like a marathon, I think it all depends on the distance as well. So yeah, it's one of those. If it's a low key race that isn't a target race, then there's a decision of, actually, I'm not going to go for that. But if it's a key race that you could be really missing out on, and an opportunity, then you've just got to grin and bear. That end result might not actually be where you're at, but in the circumstances, you've just got to accept it for what it is. And you and your coach can know that. Nobody else will know that, because at the end of the day, nobody really knows what athletes are going through unless they come out publicly afterwards and on the media and say something. You'd never know what an athlete's going through. So by one result, you don't know what that athlete's gone through. They might be on their period that day, and it might have really halted their performance. So yeah, it's just something you've got to chat to your coach about if you can. If you can't, it's just one of those where it's entirely up to you as an athlete. I wouldn't jeopardize like a huge not doing a performance, like a race that could be a real target race. I think it's just so individual. I've done races where I've raced on a period, and I've not done the result I've wanted, but I've just come away from it and just been like, what it is. Everybody else might look at it and think, oh well, she's not running as quick as she did the other month, but nobody knows what that athlete's gone through. So it's up to you as an individual, I think. And if you feel comfortable, if you're really heavy on, which some girls are, I'm very fortunate that I am not that heavy. But yeah, if some girls aren't comfortable with racing, then yeah, that's up to them. They don't have to race if they're not comfortable. You shouldn't force yourself to if you're not comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. We're talking very stereotypical here. I know it's not the same for everyone, and some guys do deal with this as well. But I see a lot of younger females and females my age as well, especially in this age of social media, struggling to maybe get the calories into their body that they need, trying to stay really super stick thin because that's what they see on social media. Is that something that you've struggled with personally?
If I'm honest with you, it's not something that I have struggled with. I think, being in and out of sport in the last 27 years, I've not really, I've not really gone through anything. Obviously, you have phases where you might be you might be a slightly different weight to what you was, or I've not gone through a period of time where I've struggled or experienced an eating disorder as such. So I can't really relate with that one. But what I do know and what I have seen and what even people that I've trained with have experienced and what I've heard and what my coach and the team around me are extremely sort of on it with, it is nutrition. So I have a nutritionist, and she basically wants to know what I eat every day, 7 days a week. Whether that's, I just text her or show her pictures or whatever. At one point, she was asking for pictures, picture evidence, so it's there. I want to know exactly what you're eating because you're doing this amount of mileage. You need to be fueling your body. And yeah, she, there was advice she gave me. It was in terms of eating too much under my calories. It wasn't really that. Yeah, I probably wasn't eating quite enough. It was more of the right things for me, and the timings of things. So she was saying sort of increase protein, increase this, or eat at this time of day instead of that time of day. It was more sort of rejiggling everything for me. And when I was working, I was sort of missing out meals, not purposely, but when you're working full time, depending on your job, I wouldn't have time to go upstairs for a snack, or sometimes I wouldn't even have, a lunch break. So then I was missing out fuel, and I could see that in my running. I'd finish work, go for a run, and the fatigue. No wonder why I could never pick up. Like my easy runs were just ridiculously slow, but they would feel like they were fast. But it was because I was so fatigued and I wasn't fueling myself at the right time of day, or throughout the day, or like you say, skipping a meal because I hadn't got time, and then going out for a run straight after work because you wouldn't have time to then go home and then eat because it would be too late. So a lot of that completely got changed, and now I have a nutritionist, and she makes sure everything that I eat is spot on. But I think young girls, I think even this day and age still have that image of looking really thin or looking a certain way to be a runner. I did have one a while back actually say to me, sort of, what do you eat? Do you eat anything? And I was like, of course I do. I probably eat more than the normal person because I have to. I said, I wouldn't be able to perform at the level I am. And the only reason why I progress so much as well is because my fueling is better. I'm eating more of the right things. I'm eating a lot more. Not that I ate a lot less before. It's just I eat a lot more now because without doing that, I can't do a session at the required pace. I'd be too fatigued and doing over 100 miles per week. Like my body wouldn't allow me if I wasn't fueling it right. So I do think young girls still do have that image of eating less is sometimes more and better. But until you reassure them that actually no, that's really not the way it is, and actually that you are more prone to having issues with your bones, issues with your menstrual cycle. Oh, there's so many issues it can open up. There's the Reds disease. I've not experienced Reds. Obviously, I've heard of athletes experiencing it and know of athletes, particularly when they were younger, but they've sort of come out of it into their adulthood now, and thankfully, a lot of them have managed to address it, and they're okay now, and now they're publicly speaking about it, which is brilliant because, like I say, a lot of young girls can relate to that. But I think a lot more media exposure should be out on fueling, nutrition, Reds, all that type of thing for young girls, because it is scary. Really, it can, if you don't address it at any point in your life or at that right time, you just don't know the long-term effects it can have on you. And if you want, when you're older, to start a family and that type of thing, you don't know what the damage you're going to cause if you don't address that. So yeah, I mean, I know of athletes, like you say, experiencing from it and written articles on it, that you could probably get a lot more advice from than what I can give, because I've not experienced that, thankfully. I think coming into the sport quite late in life and having the support quite early on in the sport, when I was pretty much, as I've come into the sport, I got coached within a year, and he addressed all that so thoroughly, and he was on it so quickly. So that was the first thing he said when he was coaching me. He was like, "What's your nutrition like? Because before we progress on to coaching, I need to know that you're fueling, you're doing this, you're doing that, you look after yourself." And since 2018, I've not had one, and touch wood, I really don't want to say it because touch wood, I've not had one injury. I've had niggles.
I really hope don't get injured after this podcast now. Crikey.
I'll be coming back to you. No, I've had niggles where, I've had to not run for a week or so, or I've had to really ease down, or had like a few days off completely of not running because I've, got a little bit of tendonitis, which just needs cooling off for a few days and no running. So of course, all athletes get niggles. It's just part of it, especially when you are doing high intensity and a lot of mileage. But to say I haven't had a major injury, and I think that is because me and my team around me are just so onto the fact of recovery, refueling, all of that type of thing. And I'm very, very conscious of that. So yeah, fueling the body is just as important as having a rest day or recovering, because that is recovery, and I think that can be the prevention of injuries as well. You don't fuel, you're more likely to get injured. It's not, even if you don't do much mileage or much volume, it's just your body can't handle it. Whereas if you're fueling well, you're looking after your body then it's getting the nutrition out of it, so it can handle a lot more.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a topic I find really interesting. I've got sisters, I've got mum. So if ever one of them's like skipping a meal, I'm like straight on it, because I think fueling is so important, to the point where I actually probably overfuel every meal because I just love food. But that is yeah, as I said, I would love to talk more on this topic. But as I said, I've got some trivia questions for you, just to end on something a little bit more upbeat. Not talk about injuries. Let's not talk about people getting nasty diseases. So yeah, so these questions, it's difficult for me to keep the difficulty, like continuity, the same for every guest that comes on the pod. So I tried my best to keep them kind of level in terms of difficulty with the other guests. And if you can't answer a question, it's not to catch you out, it's not a problem. If I didn't research the answers, I probably wouldn't know the answers either. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So some of them are about you, some of them are about running in general. So the first question I've got for you is, where do you rank in the all-time UK half marathon rankings? All time. So this is as far as the records go back. Yeah.
I'm going to say, I feel like I knew this, but I think I forgot now, or I've actually gone lower on the list. I think it's 7th.
7th is bang on. Yeah, well done.
Ah, brilliant.
Yeah, 68-12 got you 7th. Yeah. So yeah, Paula Radcliffe's obviously top of that list. But yeah, no, 68.12, very, very impressive. So the second question I've got for you, this is a bit of a wacky one. I don't even know why I put this in. When I was writing the questions, I was like, oh, yeah, I'll put that in. Obviously, you ran at the Highgate Night at the 10Ks this year, as did I. But what do you win your weight in if you win the race? So what's the reward for winning the race? Do you know? You win your
What prize did I get?
No, so what does the race give? So if you win the race,
Okay.
they give you your body weight in something. So what is the
Beer?
Yeah, it is beer, yeah. Yeah, so sorry, that was a bit of a wacky question. But yeah, no, there you go, 2 for 2.
There's definitely a lot of beer that day.
Yeah, I mean I didn't win, didn't come close to winning, and I don't drink, but I still came away with quite a few beers that day somehow.
Yeah, it was giving me like, oh, beer after beer. I was like, I don't even drink beer, but
Yeah. The third question is so according to Power of 10, you obviously run for Charnwood AC. They recently won the national cross country relays the weekend just gone. But I was wondering if you knew which of the three ladies ran the fastest leg of the team.
Gemma Steele, Hannah Nuttall. Ooh, the third one. Is it Holly? I'm not quite sure on her surname.
Okay,
No?
yeah, I'm not sure either. I know who ran the fastest leg, so you're gonna have to guess.
It was Gemma Steele, wasn't it?
It wasn't. It was Hannah Nuttall.
Oh, was
Very,
it? Oh,
very close. But yeah, it was Hannah Nuttall.
yeah.
So 2 for 3. But yeah, sorry. The questions are very random because I'm kind of scraping the barrel when it comes to running questions now after so many guests. The fourth question is what is the female half marathon record? And I'll give you like plus minus 10 seconds so you can have like a little 20-second window to get it in.
It's a British record.
No, the world record.
The world record. It's 62:12.
62:52, so not quite. Yeah.
62:52. Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's phenomenal.
Yeah, the Tessenbach Jide, I think you pronounce her name. But yeah.
Yes,
So,
I believe that she did it in Valencia, where I just raced my half marathon.
yeah, no, very impressive. When I was looking at the research, when I was looking up the world records, I was like, oh no, I'm pretty sure I know this. It's probably like 65 or something. I was like, 62.
Yeah,
So
that's insane.
And the fifth and final question is which road half marathon in the world is kind of the biggest, which has the most participants?
World half marathon, Great North Run.
It is the Great North Run. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
See that? Yeah, there you go.
I got them all right, but one.
Yeah, there you go. So that's pretty impressive though, apart from the Hannah Nuttall one. So yeah, 4 out of 5. All of my guests so far have either got 4 out of 5, and one guest did get 3 out of 5. So no one's got them all right yet. So but yeah, anyway, thank you for coming on and having this conversation with me. It's been really enjoyable. And I wish you all the best with your training in the future.
Thank you very much. No, thank you for having me.
No worries. Take care.